I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. Please be advised, in the event of a fire emergency, an alarm will sound. Please note all emergency exits and evacuate well away from the building. At this time, we request everybody please turn your cell phones to silent. Thank you for your cooperation.
That's good.
And any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
Yes, under additions, under consent agenda, extra class treasurer's report was provided to you this evening. So it's 4.6.
Okay, and can I have a motion for the consent agenda 1 through 6?
I'll make it.
Liz, and a second?
I'll second.
Joe? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Communications, correspondence.
Yes, so in your board packet, last week, the High School Citizens of the Year were selected. So freshman Mackenzie Parade, sophomore Brooke Van Dyne, junior Allie Walker, and senior Sawyer Richardson. Also, 21 middle school students earned the distinction of a National Junior Honor Society. You see those names as listed. Some special events. Today was Flag Day in the elementary school, beautiful celebration. We also had end of the year pre-K classes a couple of weeks ago. We had a great day at Camp Raider for the middle and high school students. In the elementary, they blew off some steam, so they had STEAM Day, as well as just last Thursday, Friday, middle school, high school breakfast of champions for all those that have earned the high honor roll for every consecutive marking period. Also, last week was also our faculty and staff retirement dinner. And you see about another 15 or 20 other areas of pride. Honor roll at the high school for the 35-week marking period, 69%. So basically 7 out of every 10 students earn the honor roll or high honor roll status. In addition, we received a report from the state comptroller that came in and reviewed our tax cap. And they were in here about a month ago, and we got the report back just last week, and there were no findings, so that means it was done correctly. Thank you, Jeremy. Also, in your board packet, I shared with you also that every spring athletic team earned the Honor Scholar Athlete Team Award. So softball had an overall average of 97.63. Girls track team was 97.05. Boys track 94.05. Golf 93.65. Tennis 93.48. Baseball 93.44. And our new team, Unified Basketball, was 90.17. So it's the first time every single team has earned this honor. So congratulations to all of them. And also we had another state report and audit regarding our preschool age children with respect to special education services. And they came in and conducted a verification review, and we were 100% accuracy with respect to compliance. So that's it for correspondence.
Thank you. And guests of the board, the Section 5 golf champions.
Mr. Reed.
Present the not quite yet finished block of wood. It's kind of the case here. You get the block of wood and you race it out to get the nameplate and stuff. And just future, because I'm getting pretty old, when you get one of these, don't put the thing on the top until you're ready to put it in the trophy case, because they break off all the time. So there's no golfer on there. The cheerleaders brought, I think, the cheerleader over because we sent the whole block of wood out. So when you get those, they're never put together, but that's why there's been too many broken throughout the years in Section 5. So we have Mitchell Mattice to hand it off here to
Mitchell, you can
Mr.
present it to Mr. Richter.
Richter.
Thank you. Congratulations.
So we had 14 golfers on the team. We technically only have a varsity team, but we had some 8th graders interested. So the past couple years, we've classified them as JV because there is no modified golf APP classification system. And so this year we actually set up a couple of matches for kids that would not necessarily play in a varsity match. Previously, they'd been practice only players, and they knew that going in, but the flip side of it is they get to play golf on the school team without having to pay as a normal person would have to pay for the couple months of the season. And then usually in the summertime, we've been very fortunate that Caledonia Country Club has allowed our golf team members to pay a reduced rate and play over the summer. Those that play golf know that it's a game that you have to keep playing. You can't just pick it up and be good right away. It takes all teams a good 3-4 weeks to get into our groove. So being able to play over the summer like that has helped us win sectionals now 2 years in a row. And these kids have put a lot of time in. A lot of people play golf recreationally, and it's enjoyable. These guys actually treat it like a sports team practice. They'll go to the range. They'll be out there. Again, the club affords them the opportunity. Once we finish practice, we have a parental permission, but they can stay and continue to work on their game. And routinely, I'll leave and come back or something and see these guys working on their game. On weekends, they can play afternoon, pass them by. So they've worked really hard. It's not just like they're showing up and playing golf. They've actually really put the time in to be a successful team.
Share just the path to get there, because it was new, correct?
Right, yeah, so 3 years ago, right before COVID, our league especially had advocated a change. So previously, sectional golf for the team, they took like 8 teams, and you went to one site and you played 18 holes, and they added up you took 5 guys, they added up the low 4 scores, whoever had low 1. But that's not how we play matches during the year, so it didn't really make sense to a lot of us. Why are we changing our format? Our normal format is we play 6 people, you take the low 4 scores for 9 holes, and then whoever has the lowest team score wins. So we started to advocate for a bracket tournament like most of your team sports have, and we got that in actually right before COVID. That was the first year, and obviously that spring was wiped out. So last year was the first year of it, and we won. Last year we had a bye, and then we played 2 9-hole matches on the final day, the semis and the finals. And then this year we played a first-round match, and then went to Livingston and Geneseo and won a morning match and then an afternoon match. A little different than most sports because golf courses are private industries, so you can't just be like, hey, we're going to have a game at this time on this day, like at a school. I mean, the Section 5 has to work with courses that are willing to give up their time, and in a lot of cases, money, because they've had members or greens fees paying people coming in. So high school kids, they don't get carts, so there's definitely a loss of revenue. So we put it all in one day. That's why, if people say, why do they miss school? That's why we miss school, because golf courses aren't giving up weekend times to us for the most part.
Any questions? Any of the players like to say anything?
Absolutely not.
Is Mitchell the only senior?
Mitchell's our only senior. Yep, he kind of predated COVID, so we had a lot of guys new to the team last year. Mitchell had kind of been the link to, and I've had good golf teams before. We had won sectionals. A little bit was because of the format and some unlucky stuff, but Mitchell kind of was that linchpin swing guy that helped kind of take the younger guys under his wing and really did a great job helping us to build and show the younger kids what being on the golf team was about.
Which one of the 7 behind you had the closest to a hole-in-one, and how close was he? And which one was he?
Probably Tyler Cook, probably about 1.5 feet, and we're not going to talk about if he made the putt or not.
18 inches. Nice.
Well, congratulations, guys. We're very proud of you.
Mentioned that she's going to come.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
We have one more guest of the board that's not here yet. When she does arrive, it is our Barb Burns, our internal auditor. We will finish up the agenda item that we're on when she arrives and then come back to her. That brings us to public forum. This portion of the agenda is for residents of the district to speak to the board. However, the board members will not respond. This is a time for the board to listen, and when appropriate, a response will be provided to the speaker. Individuals who wish to speak must sign in, state their name and address prior to speaking, and limit their comments to 3 minutes. Comments or questions naming specific personnel or students are to be addressed privately to protect the rights of the individuals. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Obscene language, libelous statements, threats of violence, statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice will not be tolerated. Mrs. Voos.
Right. And actually, my name is Wendy Ebersole, sorry, 33 years in the district. I'd just like to say a huge thank you to the Cal-Mum Board of Education and the administration. I started teaching here way back in 1989, and Cal-Mum has been home for me, as well as for my children who went to school here and graduated in 2015 and 2016. I will always treasure my memories of the hundreds of students that I have taught over my 33 years, and I will always be proud to be a Raider.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Dave Ebersole, Sylvan Court, thank you. First, on behalf of the people you represent, thank you for what you do in serving our children as elected people. You serve our children to give them a good start in life, and you serve all, not just your own children, but every child in the district. I have to admit I'm here under false pretenses, because if Wendy knew I was going to say nice things about her, she'd like, no. I lied to Wendy. But since Wendy's retirement, with her retirement, this will be the first time since 1989 that our relationship with the district will only be taxpayer, citizen, resident, whatever you want to call us. Wendy has been an employee, a volunteer, a coach, a parent, a sports booster, and one of the biggest fans of the Cal-Mum way. You should see how much maroon she has in our closet. We want to thank you for providing her with an incredible opportunity to be who she has been, for offering just compensation, for offering benefits to your employees, because thanks to that, because when she had cancer, we didn't lose our house, we didn't lose our jobs. We want to thank you for providing, again, Wendy the opportunity to be the best and most dedicated teacher this district has ever seen. If you could just see her in what she does, not just in the classroom, but out, I think you'd agree. Rebecca, Dave, Bob, Arnie, and forgive me if I missed anybody who was with us at the retiree celebration, you heard what I said about Wendy. I've been in this job a long time. She gave everything to her students, and like Jerry Seinfeld, she's leaving at the top of her game. I just wanted you to know how highly the community thinks of her and how proud I am of her. Thank you for your service to the people of this town. Thank you, Wendy.
Hang on, Sue.
The timer is not working.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know who I am, but just in case. I'm Valerie Connor. I think with the exception of Mr. Richter, I had everybody on the school board in school, and most of the audience also. I just wanted to share with you a couple of neat little things that have happened to me in the last couple of months. In April, Trina Hatch called me to come in and help supervise a tie-dyeing project with the Spectrum Club. I put on my old paint clothes and came in and spent a lovely 90 minutes with Ellen Macy Flint and Denise Funk watching, lending a hand, filling paint bottles, and even trying my hand at dyeing, something that at my advanced age I've never done. I want to thank Trina and the Spectrum kids for such a great time. And as I reflected back, I couldn't help but wish that that club had been there for the many LGBTQ kids that I saw pass through CMCS over the years. It certainly would have made their pathway a little easier. So thank you for supporting this club and their message of inclusivity and tolerance. And the second thing is this. I also sit on the Scholarship Review Committee for the First Presbyterian Church. Each year, we offer 2 scholarships in memory of Emily and Chris Peterson. Usually, we get 2 or 3 applications. This year, there were 7. First, we were overwhelmed with the number, but secondly, we were blown away by the caliber of the students in this senior class. The 3 members of our committee are all graduates of CMCS, and we thought we were pretty active in the activities in school and the community. But we felt like slackers when we read the accomplishments of these kids. They are amazing, not only scholastically, but also for what they have given back to the community. All 7 of them deserved a scholarship. And as it so happens, we increased the number that we're giving from 2 to 3. We wish we could reward them all. So we wanted to congratulate all of the parents, the faculty, staff, and administration of CMCS. You've done a lot of things right. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lily Fiskus, and I'm a rising sophomore in the district. I'm involved in many extracurricular activities and have maintained a high honor roll through all semesters. I'm the president of the Commonwealth Spectrum Club. Here's a quick rundown. This is a student-based club with the best possible advisor, Katrina Hatch. We are a group full of children who tend to not have support in school or at home. We join together about bi-weekly and do fun activities and support the LGBTQ students and their allies. This is so important because 50% of LGBTQ teens have attempted suicide in the last year, and they're 3.5 times more likely to commit than cis-het youth. LGBTQ plus youth are not inherently prone to suicide, but yet, because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, but rather placed at higher risk because they are mistreated and stigmatized in society. I want to thank everyone for their support, and for those who don't, please open your eyes and see that this fight isn't simply sexual. This is a fight for basic human rights.
Thank you.
I'm sure at this point most of you know who I am. If you don't, my name is Stacy Whiteside. I graduated from Cal-Mum in 2005, and I recently ran for a seat on the school board. Throughout the campaign process, I was asked several times what I would do to help combat bullying within these school walls. While I still stand by my answers and truly believe that all children should be treated with kindness and respect, regardless of their differences, I quickly learned that some of the adults within this community, including current and future board members, are some of the biggest bullies I've ever encountered. I dealt with a few bullies throughout middle school and high school, but the behavior displayed by adults over the last 3 months is horrifying. The harassment, the name-calling, and the outright lies, so far from the truth, it's absurd, are truly concerning. Just last month, this very board allowed an adult to stand up in a room full of community members and students and break rules clearly outlined and spoken prior to the public forum, just like they were today. The intentions of this adult were clear. Not only was it written right on the sign-in sheet, but the opening line of the speech was, "I was told I'm not allowed to do this." But each of you sat back and allowed it to continue after several opportunities to step in. That night, a staff member later referred to her slanderous statements as a wonderful public comment. A current board member also used their business and public Facebook page, branded in the name of this school board, to perpetuate lies and manipulate the public's perception. I have to wonder, if I stated the names of these individuals in this speech today, would you stop me or would you let me carry on for twice the allotted time like you did for her? So in conclusion, what I've learned over the last 3 months is that if we want to make a true impact and end this cycle of bullying, we need to start with the adults our children are looking up to. I will no longer sit back and stay quiet. I will lead by example for my children and stand up to the bullies. I will continue to research and ask questions, and I will not be bullied into falling in line. One positive that came from the last 3 months is that I now know I'm not alone. I have a growing support system behind me, and as the truth continues to reveal itself, I know that the support system will only get bigger. Kindness and respect will always win in the end.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Debbie Fitz, or Deborah Fitz, and I live on Scottsville-Mumford Road. On the evening of May 10th, I attended the Meet the Candidates night. I arrived early and was in attendance at the board meeting prior to the candidate introductions. During the public forum time, I was amazed at what transpired. A citizen had signed up to speak, which is a normal occurrence. However, on this occasion, the citizen proceeded to unfairly speak about 2 board candidates. According to public forum rules, a person is not supposed to name people and are only allotted 3 minutes. The board allowed this person to speak well past the 3-minute mark. She specifically named the candidates and questioned their motives for running. She also mentioned Moms for Liberty as if it was some sort of evil organization and made false accusations. Unfortunately, the candidates were not allowed to respond at that time or even during the question and answer period later. This caused much anxiety for the candidates right before they were scheduled to be up on the stage. I've been attending board meetings since March 2022, and I also did a few years ago to when Common Core was being introduced. And it seems there are rules for these and rules for those. This all appears to be biased and unfair, and the recording mysteriously failed that evening. So I think that we should follow the rules, and if we're not going to follow the rules, that maybe they change the rules. I am a taxpayer, and I pay a considerable amount of money for school taxes. This alone should allow me and others a voice when it comes to not just spending and budgets, but all school policies and curriculum. In case you're not aware, there is a wickedness sweeping across this nation. Not saying it's necessarily all here right now, but we are living in the midst of a spiritual battle, and the enemy is after our children. We are not the enemy. We are the parents and grandparents that are trying to protect our children from this wokeness. I support all of these parents, and I believe that they are the majority. Personally, if I were raising children again, I would homeschool. I have more to say on other things. I'll be back.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Rosemary Van Harken, and I attended CMCS K through 12 and graduated in 1977. In 2013, after becoming widowed, I moved back to Caledonia and returned to CalMum as a cleaner, working the 3 to 11 shift. I felt proud to contribute to the health and safety of the district students by disinfecting their desks, floors, restrooms, and hallways each evening to ensure they would return to a sparkling, clean, and germ-free learning environment at the start of each new school day. Although I have long since resigned my cleaning position, I am unwilling to resign myself to the notion that the precious students of this district deserve less than the very best that we as a community can offer them. My first issue is school security. This is not any kind of an indictment, because I'm sure that the board is already working on this. I just wanted to give my opinion. My guess is that the board is already taking steps to ensure the security of the students, teachers, and staff in our schools. My recommendation is to tweak what is already in place at the main entry. Have the 2 doors with bulletproof glass that both require getting buzzed in by a security officer or an SRO. The first door locks behind the person who enters while they present identification and speak to the SRO through bulletproof glass, giving the reason they wish to enter through the second door. Metal detector in this area may be added. I realize the budget for next year has recently been passed and funding for these changes may not have been included, but the gravity of the recent events will undoubtedly inspire the board to find funding if needed. The second issue I want to raise is taken from the district beliefs and core values that I got off the website. I read through the 12 bullet points that outline lofty standards and goals concerning behaviors and attitudes of our community members and how they are reflected in the school culture. Yikes. Without a lot of words, I will suffice to say that there is nasty division between factions and groups in our little town, and that is often paraded in all its ugliness across social media pages. I don't have social media accounts, and I still hear some pretty hateful opinions from those that do. And I hear it in the grocery store, and I hear it in restaurants. It is too often in the form of allegations flung at large groups of people, our own neighbors, parents of our children's friends, people who support one political candidate or another, people who fill in the blank. It can be anything. This brings me to the 10th bullet point of district beliefs and core values, which reads, quote, continually seek to innovate.
Mrs. Van Auken, that's 3 minutes.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
I got the best part to come.
Rosemary, you certainly can, to the board, you certainly can do that.
Oh, it's such good ideas. Okay, I would have done that part first.
Please feel free to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. I want to address some of the issues that came up at the May 10th board meeting. In regards to the inflammatory statements that were made, I think enough has been said about that, but I would like to clear up some of the patently false statements that were made about Moms for Liberty in particular, since I am the chairperson for the county. Number one, Moms for Liberty is a 501c nonprofit, just like the New York State Council of School Superintendents is a 501c. What the superintendents belong to, which is neither political or extremist. Moms for Liberty is not an extremist organization. It is a grassroots organization started in 2021 by 2 moms, and it's all volunteer, supported by parents, grandparents, friends, and concerned citizens. Moms for Liberty is nonpartisan. However, it does support candidates that support parental rights at all levels of government. Moms for Liberty is not anti-fill-in-the-blank or about identity politics. It is for parents having the fundamental right to direct the education, medical decisions, and moral upbringing of their own children. Moms for Liberty does not support book banning, but does support the process of challenging and removing books from school libraries that contain sexually explicit or age-inappropriate content for children to access without parental consent. Having age-appropriate reading is not the same as banning books. Whether the board, community, or parents want to discuss it, critical race theory repackages social-emotional learning, comprehensive sex education, gender ideology is being pushed into public schools across the country. Search any website, review any of the current bills that are in Albany right now, and it is unfortunate this offends or terrifies some people, but parents requesting transparency on curriculum or what goes on behind these walls does not make us terrorists, extremists, or spreading fear. We are simply doing our jobs as parents. It is the responsibility of the school board to work with the community to improve student achievement, but as we have seen, boards and districts have been faced with a minefield of political and cultural issues, making this role much more difficult. However, you are still here on behalf of us, not despite us. Gaps in communication and transparency have formed over time, creating less than an ideal environment between district boards and parents. Parents would like to see that communication and trust improve, but this can only happen with honest communication and conversations. So ultimately, parents feel that their children are in good hands. I finally encourage any member of the community to demonstrate integrity and come out from behind the keyboard to present constructive arguments on any issue instead of labeling and attacking individuals who come with you to disagree. There's a lot of lip service given to tolerance, inclusion, and safety. However, we did not see this put into practice amongst the members of the community during this last Board of Education election. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Paddock, and I was wondering can the results of the Caledonia-Mumford School Board election be trusted? And why is this even a question worth asking? Well, let's take a trip back to the presidential campaign of 2020. On the night of the election in swing states, we watched as volunteers taped cardboard over the observation windows to prevent any chance of transparency. We watched as election workers continually inserted the same ballots into machines over and over again. Just 3 weeks ago, federal authorities admitted that Dominion voting machines are vulnerable to hacking, which was the same week in a primary election in DeKalb County, Georgia. The machines did not count 2,800 votes at all. New and corrupt databases were created. There were mistakes in the scanners. Thousands of votes were not counted. Thousands of votes were miscounted for multiple candidates. Hand counts were conducted to correct the machine counts. And guess what? The primary among 3 candidates saw the election results completely flip order. What are the chances that DeKalb's one mixed-up race was the only race that Dominion machines mixed up in the primaries? They produced false results in the one race that anyone had been forced to recount by hand. So how does this relate to our election last month? Well, if you went in to vote, you may have noticed something peculiar. Despite the requirement that the voter must have been a resident of the district for at least 30 days prior, nobody asked for a single form of ID. In fact, no voter was even required to sign in on the register, and no cross-reference was ever made. Is it possible that a resident of any town anywhere could have voted in this election? What kind of machine was used in order to tabulate the votes? Did this machine have any glitches throughout the voting day? Was this machine somehow unable to be hacked? Who had access to the machine and the ballots throughout the process? How easy would it be to change or ignore votes? And why exactly does CalMum even need a voting machine in the first place? Is there no one available to count the votes by hand? Now, I'm not implying that there was any definitive fraud in the last election. However, I am most explicitly saying that it left itself wide open to vulnerabilities and failed to be transparent. So I propose 3 common sense policies for all future elections here. First, eliminate the machine completely, hand count only. Second, have all candidates unanimously agree on 4 highly respected members of the community to oversee the election. If they can't agree, 4 randomly selected residents would be citizen supervisors. And finally, ensure that it's only verified residents who provide valid ID can have access to absentee ballots. So I ask you, board members, which ones of you would commit to ensuring election integrity? I have election integrity forms here you can consider. We'll see you at the next school board meeting and expect an answer from you.
I'm assuming you all know who I am, Alyssa Sherman. What I have to say tonight has some irony attached to it because the very thing a current board member attacked me on over this past election is what's going to spare them from me going to detail on every single thing they and their spouse did. Their saving grace, the fact that I'm a Christian, and the message spoken at church this past Sunday set the speech tonight in a very different direction from what I had originally planned. So as much as they spewed hate and lies regarding what it means to be a Christian, specifically stating on their school board page that us Christians are rationalizing this hate for people through the Bible, the fact that I'm a Christian is exactly what's going to stop me from going any further than just stating the following. This is your notice that we are watching, and will hold you accountable for every decision you make going forward. I hope you take time to reflect on your behavior and the behavior you allowed to happen at the hands of your spouse over the past 3 months and strive to be much, much better. Our children deserve someone with integrity making decisions regarding their education, someone who will make sure bullying isn't tolerated in any form. It's time you start living up to that standard. Actions speak louder than words, and your actions over the course of this election have been downright embarrassing. Grow up, man up, and going forward, never allow anything like this to happen again. Our children deserve only the best. I hope you can figure out how to live up to that standard for their sake. I'd like to leave you with a quote from said board member that was posted to their school board page. I think perhaps they should take time to reflect on their own words. Get off your mountain, see the world for what it is, all of this over a seat on the school board. Shame.
Yes. Okay, so under superintendent's report, specifically is the board election. So you have before you in the backup notes, just basically the passing of the budget at 70%, and then also with respect to the bus, as well as the capital project being, capital reserve fund being extended for $10 million. That's it for President's report.
Okay, we have no old business, but several items of new business. We're going to start with new business number 1, date of the annual organizational meeting. Resolved that the Board of Education hold its annual organizational meeting per board policy on Tuesday, July 12th, 2022. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 2, creation of the Director of Pupil Services job description. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the job description for the Director of Pupil Services. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Self-explanatory. Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 3, transfer to reserve funds. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, pre-authorize any transfers which may be necessary in connection with the fiscal year-end closing of the district books to ensure compliance with Section 1318 of the Rental Property Tax Law, 4% limit on fund balance. In the event that there is a budget surplus that is greater than what we are able to utilize in our appropriated fund balance, the superintendent recommends that the Board of Education take action to authorize transfers to approve reserve funds, including the appropriation of fund balance and reserve contained in the voter-approved 2022-2023 budget. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make it.
And a second?
I can second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and number 4, our principals will present the code of conduct.
Good evening. So we are going to actually just spotlight for you. You have copies of the Code of Conduct in its entirety, the draft for the next school year. And in our slide presentation, you're just going to see the 2 areas in which we have made some changes. Each year we do present the Code of Conduct to our compact committees, which are 3 committees right now. Next year we'll go to 2. the elementary compact committee, middle school, and then high school next year. Obviously, we will be one middle school, high school. So 3 committees have taken a look at this, and we've had conversation about the dress code. So what you're seeing in terms of the changes for the dress code is that we actually are adding a couple of pieces. So there's some, let's call it conversation around how we talk about how kids dress. And oftentimes people think that the rules that we're putting in place might be more specific to gender. In all reality, the rules that we're putting into place are about the appropriateness for a school setting. We think about the fact that we are raising young people, I believe, to step into life outside of high school and be CEOs of major companies. And to be quite honest, it requires the ability to understand what appropriate dress is, right? We all function under appropriate appearance. So we've changed a little bit of that code language to make sure that people are understanding that this isn't about how we dress in order to make sure everybody can learn and stay focused. It's about, we're making sure everyone understands the appropriateness of attire given the school setting. Bare midriffs, plunging necklines, pajamas, cropped in or cut off shirts, spaghetti straps, tank tops, clothing exposing undergarments or clothing worn in a suggestive manner are prohibited. You'll see tank tops there in red. Tank tops is actually something that the compact committees have said that, I mean, honestly, as long as we are not seeing children's undergarments, the ability to wear a tank top with an appropriate strap should be allowable within our code. So you'll see that there in red because we want to eliminate tank tops as being something that is prohibited. Other thing that we've added to the dress code is ours is always read, attire shall not promote or endorse the use of alcohol, tobacco, or illegal drugs, or encourage other illegal or violent activities. We are now adding the term display, because sometimes what you're seeing on clothing is, let's say, drug paraphernalia, and that's not actually promoting, but is certainly displaying. So we're trying to clean up our language to make sure that everyone understands that we do not want kids coming to school with drug paraphernalia or something of that sort on their clothing. Questions about student dress code?
Is this the part of the code of conduct that deals with the safety aspect of hoods and hats?
You'll see no hoods, no hats in the overall code of conduct, but what I pulled for you in terms of the presentation are just the areas in which we are making change. We did obviously have conversations about hats and hoods and whether or not that should be permissible when kids are in school. Definitely in our conversation, we spoke about the need for our security cameras to be able to recognize who is in our buildings and who is not. I definitely think that hoods in the hallway makes everybody look a lot the same from the back. So it's something I think we need to continue to study. A lot of schools around us are eliminating all kinds of dress code pieces. So we certainly continue to watch what's happening around us and bring that back to our compact committees to make sure that we are creating a code of conduct that reflects what our community is looking for and not just the growing trends that you're starting to see around us. So the compact committees were all in agreement that no hats and no hoods should be maintained.
Dr. Schnupp, for those who are not familiar with compact committees, who's represented on those committees?
Our committees are made up of parents, teachers, and middle level there are students. High school students tend not to show up to those meetings just because of how overcommitted they are, but they are invited every year for compact committee orientation.
Ours are basically our PTO, parents, really parents, and then we have teachers.
I will say we're lucky to have standing committee members that continue to return, but I will also tell you that every year at the beginning of the school year, I send out an all-call for anyone that is a parent of the school that wants to be a member of the compact committee. I think it's something that we just need to continue to keep a very open door and try to get more people to participate in that process.
And our rep is Mr. Belinek for high school, right?
No, Mr. Fitch.
Mike's element.
Yeah.
The next major change that you're going to see, I shouldn't probably call it a major change, but we've been playing with the language inside disorderly conduct around how kids are using their cell phone devices. And what we have noticed across the school year is that we've had a few times where kids have used their cell phone to either take a picture of another child or a video of another child without that child's consent, and then posted that material to a website of some sort, whether it be or an app like a Snapchat or out on social media for all to see. And in our old language, what you would see is that ours said that you could not do that during regular school hours, which did not give us the ability to really discipline some of the things we were beginning to see coming from evening events that were happening here at school. So initially, we started playing with that language, and we were looking to broaden our scope, that it's not just about regular school hours, 7:30 to 3 o'clock, but it's anytime you're on school property at a school function. That language actually looks a little bit more prohibitive because it starts to make it sound like you are eliminating a child's ability to use their cell phone, like even to call home and have a conversation with their parent after school hours. So the language that you see in blue is actually meant to clarify what the above paragraph is. So instead of playing with the language, we'd like to just adopt new language. So what you see there in blue would actually be replacing what you see above all of that in black. I would say the major issue, the reason why we are looking at this is because, even on the bus, like things that kids are doing with their cell phones when they are not, where the cell phones are not prohibited, like being on a bus or being outside in the stadium, your children, all people's children have a right to privacy. And so to have yourself captured in a way that is not flattering, put out on social media for all to see, it creates an awful lot of drama and discomfort. We want our students to feel very safe when they are here on school property.
Past few years, we have been seeing some of that trickle into the elementary school very often in codes of conduct. High school principals, in this case Becky, would bring stuff and I'd say, well, I haven't quite seen that yet. But what we're actually seeing is we are seeing kids with cell phones dealing with more of the electronic devices. I would say a lot of what we're dealing with has some type of root in it. So having that in there will help us kind of enforce rules.
Definitely when it comes to cell phone use, social media, apps, the kind of things that kids are posting and doing online is something that we talk often about in our compact committees. It's sort of a mission that we need to go on over the course of the next year. I would say as principals and assistant principals, we probably spend about 80% of our time dealing with things that are happening outside of the school day on social media, things that create an environment where kids don't feel safe returning here. They don't feel like they belong. Social media is definitely one of our biggest battles. We need parents to get involved and help us with that. Any questions?
So as Dr. Chanel mentioned, the entire code of conduct in your board packet. That'll be for public view for the next 30 days, and at your next meeting, either July or early August, or second meeting in July, whatever the case may be, it'll be approved. So it needs to have 30-day audit period for people to review.
So in that period, it shows up on our website?
Yes.
Yes, on the link. Thank you.
Mrs. Burns? No problem. You're a busy person.
Yes, I'm just here to report everything's going good. Jeremy's doing good, keeping things in order. We've adopted a new, looking at the PO dates compared to the invoice dates. If the invoice date is after the PO, I write it down for him. I mean, some of it's like if a repair happens, something breaks. Obviously, the PO is going to be after the invoice date probably, just because you have to get it fixed. But there's been a few that probably could be adjusted, in the departments. And I know with some new people coming into some of the departments, he's, trying to train them the way that we want to see the bills. So, there's no problems, no issues. I think that was a good step to watch the PO dates compared to the invoice dates. So the bills are trickling in slow now, but I know it's slow in the summer and then it picks up again in September. So, and he's got me going twice a month also, which is a little nicer, especially where I'm doing Avon at the same time. And we just coordinate our dates. So it's twice a month we're paying the bills now. So, and we're going to do a little bit of adjustment come in the summertime. So like if you don't see him in one warrant, you'll see him in the next, just because of the way the dates are going to fall. So they'll all be there eventually. Any questions?
Any questions for our internal auditor?
Nope. Okay. Well,
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Yep, no
Thanks for
problem.
another wonderful year.
Yep.
Thank
yep,
you.
Great, thanks. So, all right, well, have a good night.
You too.
Okay, and back to Dr. Chanel for the extracurricular code of conduct.
this.
Actually going to use your slide because we just X'd out. So basically, what you're going to see is that the extracurricular activity book, what we do when we update that eligibility is we actually mirror whatever we have decided to do in the athletic handbook. So the athletic handbook, Mike will talk about here in a second. Actually, why don't you come down? We're going to tag
Perfect.
team, and then I'm going to bounce out. So what we talk about is we have a coaches council that we run the athletic code of conduct through. So whenever we're making changes, the changes to that code run through the athletic council. The athletic council updates come on over into the extracurricular. So if the board will recall, the reason why we wrote the extracurricular is because we made the decision that our student athletes were being held to a higher standard when it came to their behavior outside of school and their attendance and all of those things by the nature of our athletic code. And we wanted to make sure that whether you were playing a sport, in chess club, in the school musical, that you were held to the same expectation. So I would say that the one change that you're going to see in the athletic code of conduct that is also now over in the extracurricular is that we've had conversations about how we give out participation passes. So I'm going to try to give you an example. It'll spare Mike from having to describe it in a second. So what we have now is that if a student is late to school, as long as you are in school by 9:15 with a parent note, you are eligible for a participation pass. So depending on the season, you get 3 passes or you get 4. So if you're a student who has a block 6, let's say, a block 6 study hall, and you come to me or to Mr. Reed and you say, I want to leave during my study hall to go to the bank, we would have to tell you that you're not eligible. So basically, under our current policy, we only give flexibility for block 1. If I'm a great student and block 1 happens to be an AP economics class, I don't want to run my errand during AP economics. I want to do it at the end of the day. We are kind of encouraging through the way we wrote our policy that the only flexibility you get is if you come in late. So what we've now added is the ability for a child, if they cannot solve an issue, you can't get to the bank any other time. There is no other way for you to conduct the business that you're trying to conduct. You would be able to get special permission from the principal or the athletic director to have some flexibility coming out of study hall or out of a lunch to run some kind of errand. Does that make sense?
If I understand correctly too, with the
Yes.
caveat that they're in good academic standing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I would say the example that we have is we actually had a male student who was in a wedding on a Saturday morning and plays 3 sports a year, is in all of our upper level AP classes, and just could not find a time to get a haircut. He really just wanted to leave through a study hall to get a haircut. Under our rules, I couldn't allow him to do that. If I wanted to solve this problem for him, I'm a problem solver, right? So if I want to solve the problem, I say to him, well, make your haircut at 8:30. Because you can come to school up until 9:15 and have a participation pass. There was a way around our rule, and that way would have caused him to miss an AP economics class instead of flexibility in another area of his day, which would have made more sense. Mr. Bickford, do you have a question?
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I feel like I just got beamed into a Star Trek episode.
Yes.
When? Could you guys go to the bank
No, but
towards the end?
please understand, because I was a part of this
Yes,
discussion. It
that
took
you
me
get
a
it.
while
knocking
to
it.
wrap my mind around
Okay.
it. This for students that are in good academic standing and they're not leaving a classroom. They're study hall or lunch or something. It's not academic time.
No,
So I just want to clarify
No,
that.
I know what you're gonna
Right.
ask. So, yeah, in your day or in my day, yes, but also then you didn't have 47 parents calling up, well, that's not fair, because when the principal made that decision, they took all of those variables into account. What kind of student are you? So nowadays, unfortunately, something like that happens, then you're called out in front of it, so we have, the rules to kind of make sure that we're being fair and.
But let's say it was still a study hall, and it was a senior female with say a 75 average instead of the other male student you just described who needed a haircut. I mean, can anyone
So here's the example that I gave. Like,
It could be a male.
yeah, it could be anybody. I guess here's the example. I think we all work for, I think I work for a really stern employer.
Strike that.
And I would say, like, if I were to call Superintendent Malasani in the middle of the day and say, hey, I never take a lunch. I just feel like I need to say that before I use this example. But if I were to say, hey, I really need to run to the bank, I would like to run out for 10 minutes, run up to the bank, take care of something, and come back. Chances are he would say, absolutely, go run your errand. I don't ask every day. If I ask every day, I expect him to tell me no. That's the conversation I have with the kids, right? Asking for a one-off sometimes for flexibility is something that I imagine all of us are able to get sometimes from our employer. It's a bad habit. Don't ask for it all the time. But to be so rigid with the kids, when in all reality, I wouldn't treat any staff member that way. If any of them said, could I run out and come back during my planning time or during my lunch to take care of something, I feel like from time to time we say, yeah, that makes sense, you can do that. So in our current policy, the only flexibility that kids had is to be late to school. Our policy allowed a participation pass, you could miss block 1. For some kids, they're never gonna miss block 1. That's not where they want the flexibility. Block 1 is English. They wanted the flexibility during lunch. Our policy just did not allow that. So I always think about the rules that we create, and I say, I'm pretty savvy with rules. So if I can figure out how to get around the rule, basically the way we wrote the rule, we wrote it in a way that would encourage kids to miss block 1. Get your hair cut during block 1. When in all reality, if you're stuck and you need to solve a problem, the best decision is to decide to step out of something when it is not heavy curriculum work.
Okay.
So we wanted to just create some flexibility. We still don't expect kids to use this all the time. And one of the provisions that we wrote in is they have to talk about all the other things they've tried. So like I'm back to the haircut, the poor kid. He's watching tonight, sorry. But the thought that he attempted to get his haircut,
Got canceled.
it got canceled. Then once it got canceled, there was no way for him to get back in before that Friday, and it wasn't canceled by him, right? So like sometimes life happens. Our code did not allow life to happen. If you left and went and did that, you're out. You can't participate. So we tried to create some flexibility, but still making it clear to kids, you don't ask your employer all the time to cut you a break. You still want to be trying to do all the things you're supposed to do outside of work hours, outside of school hours. Do it out there. But when you're stuck, we're here to help you solve your problem.
They have to have the parent know.
Yes, absolutely.
This is the last question, I promise. I got a little bit of my. If you told Johnny he'd go get his hair cut, wouldn't you, if it were me, I'd be thinking, well, what if someone backs into him? What if someone turns left out of Bell's? What if, then I'd be like, when is this kid, I want to know when the kid got back.
We definitely, no matter when a child leaves this building, they do not leave this building without their parent permission. Even the ones that will come into the office and
Okay, I
say,
missed that.
I'm
Yeah,
18, I should be able to sign myself
sorry,
out.
okay.
I'll let you know when you're an adult.
All right.
It is not while you're in high
All
school. Your
good.
mom or dad, yes.
Thank you for your
Never do they
patience.
move without parent permission. For exactly that reason, Mr. Bickford.
No, we're
Exactly
good.
that
I
reason.
think they're good questions.
Yeah,
They're
I
great
just-
questions.
We lied when we were in 1978.
I don't allow that.
That's why we have code.
Yes. Parents can
Regardless,
call,
thank you.
they can email, they can submit electronic forms. Like, we have multiple ways in which parents can communicate with us, but kids do not leave this building without parent permission in writing.
Did his haircut turn out nice?
He didn't get it. We denied
Oh,
him.
so
Our
I
code,
forgot.
our code didn't allow it. The poor
Oh,
kid
I'm
didn't
sorry.
have a haircut.
Actually, we benefited from that. My son slipped into the open spot, got his hair cut. Wasn't going to the wedding, just had a football game, so his helmet fit better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so
And,
you saw.
So then, as far as the extracurricular code, we'll take action on that at a later meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Reed.
Okay, so you saw the first page. For the Athletic Council, as Dr. Chanel said, we meet annually to review it. We have a nice cross-section of coaches, administrators, students, and that's where that one suggestion on updating the participation pass came, was from the student. When we denied it, when Dr. Chanel denied it, we said, bring it up. And so student brought it up, and we discussed it and made the change based on the student recommendation. The committee works, I think, really well, especially because we have a lot of people who have been involved in athletics and know some of the ins and outs of how it goes. I mean, like you said, the reason our code is so tight right now is because probably, over the past 5 to 10 years, like, we saw where students were finding the loopholes and tightened them up. So I think it's a really good code, and I put that at the bottom. But the changes for me, as you guys look at your version of it, are on the cover, pages, 2, 3, 4. Is this thing moving because I'm moving? Am I moving it?
Point up there, Mike.
Yeah, probably could help. I think I just turned it off. I don't know, it's moving all over the place.
Almost took out another wire.
That was me the first time. Which way is backwards? Thanks, there we go. So the changes that you'll see are blue next to red. Basically, they're just updating the year in names. So where people have either stopped coaching or moved on, or the year has changed. So on the cover, page 2, and then page 36, page 37, and page 38. Those are just basic new year changes. There's nothing there other than updating names and things like that. The biggest change on page 14, adding in the new piece to the participation pass. And then the same thing that Dr. Chanel talked about with the cell phones and recordings, adding that in. I called it privacy recording. It's on page 23. So we want those codes to sync, adding that in. Again, part of that talked about changing room, locker rooms, things like that. And, fortunately, knock on wood, we haven't had a lot of issues with our student athletes in that locker room situation with phones and that, but some schools have. So it's always something to be aware of. Basically, we work on the code every year. We really do have discussions about it, and people bring things to the table. And overall, I think it's in really good shape. It keeps our students in school and learning. We usually get asked about, why is there not a grade average for participation? And we actually I think it's a better way to do it, because you get grades, and as you're asking, what's the 75 for? Well, 75 for somebody might be great. Maybe a 68 for somebody is great. Like, they're taking a challenging class and doing well. We don't want kids to avoid challenging classes for fear they might get dinged in a eligibility situation. So they're free to take the tough classes. Ours just says, we know that if you come to school, we can educate you. We need you in school, and that's why we have the participation pass system, and I think it works really well. Now I got to remember to click ahead, right? All right. So just to give you some updates on some of the data, just a comparison point, 2020, 2021, we had 3 student athletes violate the code and miss contest time. All were first offenses. This school year, we had 2 violate the code and miss contest time, and again, all were first offenses. So we have a system where there's 3 offenses built in. Again, that's a tweak we made maybe 4 or 5 years ago in there. With COVID, it gets a little hazy, but where we put more of a learning component into it. So it used to be strictly punitive, where you violate, you sit out, you sit home. And as we evaluated it and looked at some things, we added back in where they can practice with the team. And then also, when they return from their suspension, they meet with the guidance department and they do like a evaluation just to check for any chemical health issues and things like that. So really put an educational component in it, trying to help the students learn so they don't make a mistake again. Any questions on this? It's pretty self-explanatory. The participation passes, so if you want to know how many were used this year, in the fall we used 12, in the winter we used 14, in the spring we used 28. Nice weather in the spring, kids are out, I guess late, allergies, I don't know what's going on, but and to date we have not yet had a student run out and be ineligible. So we were close. We've had a student use 3 in the spring. So what that means basically is, once they've used their allotment, if they are late, doesn't matter if it's 9:15 or not at that point. If they're late, then they're not eligible. Okay, so the default eligible is 7:45 a.m. Start of the day. You get the passes in each season to allow you to come in late for those unforeseen circumstances. Obviously, if you have a doctor's note, things like that are legal excuses. This is just like, I overslept, car wouldn't start, things like that. The participation reports, you get those seasonally. Mr. Malasani shares them with you. Just to sum them up a little bit, because this is it's a big discussion point amongst athletic directors regionally. The percentages remain pretty close. A little bit of a drop this season, which a lot of areas have seen, kind of like the COVID rebound effect, I think, where kids, maybe some found other things to do, weren't so involved in athletics. Again, like school, when we get them involved in our athletic programs, they tend to stay involved. Also with a declining enrollment, if you have a similar percentage rate but fewer kids, it's fewer kids playing. The Mod A varsity model is probably going to be used more in the future. So boys soccer is one where we've done that. Mod A takes athletes in grades 7 through 9 as opposed to 7, 8. You don't have JV, and then varsity is grades 10 through 12. Ninth graders can be promoted at any point. They don't need to take any tests. 9 through 12 is high school, so they can play varsity. So that model has been used for, we used it for baseball one year recently, not this past year. We used it for boys soccer. We're probably actually looking at it for boys and girls soccer in the fall. Just with the number of kids and kids that are not necessarily playing sports outside of their favorites and things like that. The preliminary numbers, we did like an interest sheet, show those being down a little bit. In a school our size, if you see a bubble, like let's say football numbers go up, it kind of means probably soccer numbers are going down. We only have so many kids. When you bubble up in one place, you're getting them from somewhere. We're not getting a ton more kids coming in. And also, again, we haven't done it at the Athletic Council, but it leads to discussions, possibly next year, mergers to retain programs. So we did that with football quite a few years ago. We looked at the incoming students and the data for, actually I think it was the class that just graduated out when Mr. Malasani and I started looking at the football numbers. And we knew that, if we wanted to try and offer 3 levels of football consistently, that we probably would need to entertain a merger to do it. So that's what we use the numbers for. Overall, I skipped, so you see fall 2019, fall 2021, skipped the fall of 2020. Remember last year was really wonky. We played soccer and ran cross country in fall 1. Then we had football in fall 2, which was like March to May. So I took those numbers as an anomaly, threw them out. So fall 2019, we had 61% of the girls participating, 54% of the boys. You can see a little bit of a drop, especially in the girls in 2021. In the winter, again, you see pretty similar numbers. Winter of 2019-2020 was pretty close. Again, that year they pushed it back to start after February when the state released some of their guidance that wasn't as restrictive that year. And then in the winter, this past winter, there's the numbers. And then the spring, I did actually use the spring of 2021, because if you remember, the spring of 2020 canceled. So we didn't really have any numbers. So the fall and winter, I went back to, I guess what I would say is a regular year, pre-COVID. 2021 spring is post-COVID, but that was pretty close. They just got pushed a little bit into May and June for their participation. So the percents are pretty close. Again, I would say, talking to my colleagues, we've seen a decline in participation in the past year or so. Kids got used to kind of staying home, doing other things. They did not all return to athletics like they had before. But you get the full reports each season, so you can see all the data by team and things like that. Dual participation, we had 4 athletes attempt in the fall, 2 completed. And what I mean by that is, like, when they sign on the paperwork, they choose a primary sport and a secondary sport, and they're supposed to go to the primary sport for practice and contest. If they can make it, they go to the secondary sport. So let's say volleyball is their primary. We lay out the volleyball practice and game schedule, and that's what they're supposed to go to. And then if they wanted to run cross country, we superimpose the cross country schedule on there, and we see where they might be able to do like both or something like that. If there's a cross country meet, that would supersede a practice even for their primary sport. So there's a little give and play on that. But as some of the students get into it, like when they first sign up to it and they first start talking to me about it, they really think it's like club in the summer where they're just going to show up and play games. And then when I sit down with the coaches and they agree to it and we lay out the practice schedule, we probably lose 4 or 5 right there. They're like, wait, what do you mean? I got to go to golf practice, then I got to go to baseball practice? It's like, Yes, that's what dual participation is at the high school level. So it's a little bit more than just showing up for games. The two that completed in the fall were both volleyball as their primary sport and then cross country. So cross country practices, yes, they had to attend, they have to get the minimum in, but by their conditioning in volleyball, they were doing some conditioning that would be considered, a little bit for a cross country runner. And then they would go to cross country practices and then cross country meets. And again, I see it happening more for us with dual participation in some of the individual sports. It worked out for those two student athletes. In the winter, nobody attempted it. The practice schedules for your basketballs and your wrestlings are really tough. So for a kid to try and do like basketball and wrestling would be pretty difficult. You might have seen a kid try indoor, but again, then they're playing basketball all week and then going to an indoor track meet on all day Saturday. Again, it takes a lot of wear and tear on the body, even though the kids don't think it does. In the spring, we had more interest in it. We had 8 athletes attempt, 5 complete, 2 that were track. So I put in their primary and their secondary, track tennis, tennis track unified basketball, and tennis unified basketball. So again, unified basketball would actually lend itself to it. It's not as intense. It is more like once you get your practices in, then you're just showing up to play games. They don't actually practice once they get to the game portion of their schedule. So that's a pretty easy one. The coaches don't necessarily love the dual participation. Nobody really wants to be the person that says no, but they'll work it. I talked to a couple of the coaches, and they'll have conversations with the kid like, okay, you have X event on Wednesday. We have one on Thursday. I kind of need you at ours on Wednesday because we're going over what we're going to do on Thursday. But if they have a contest in the other sport, they're not there. So then you're talking to the student athletes about, okay, well, maybe you're a starter, you won't start, and things like that. So some schools use it, I guess, pretty effectively. I'm going to talk to a couple other athletic directors just to see what their approach is, to see if it's different than ours. The other thing would be most of our sports aren't like dire in need of kids. So I had kids that wanted to do baseball, golf, let's say. I had 14 kids on my golf team. How am I telling one of those kids who's there every day at golf practice, oh yeah, here comes this baseball kid. He went to 3 practices. Now he's going to play in the match and you're going to sit out and watch. So as the coach, that's a dynamic that we have to manage. It's kind of tough to do. Now, if I had 3 golfers on my team and I needed a 4th golfer to make a team, then yes, I'm bringing that kid in whenever I can get him in. So that's what I want to talk to some of the other schools about it and see if that's how they're doing it, like for teams that are short on numbers, or if it's really, they're really playing 2 sports. I'll stop for a second because this is like the best part of my thing coming up. Do you guys have any questions on the other ones you are thinking about, or are you just like, okay, good news. Everybody that left, and you guys are leaving, you're missing the best part, just telling you right now. All right. Unified, don't leave, it's the best part. Unified basketball and scholar athlete, 2 areas of celebration. Thank you to our school board and to our administrators for all your support. Our athletic program, for the first time since the New York State Public High School Athletic Association started giving out School of Excellence and School of Distinction, we are going to be a school of distinction. I get them backwards because it doesn't seem like the words match up. School of Excellence is if you have 75% of your athletic teams meet the standard. We've done that. We've been like, every year it's like 1 or 2 teams. I'm not even going to say any team names, but we're just right there. We're like, can this team get over the hump? And this year, all of our teams got over the hump. So all of our completed athletic teams that were complete teams got the Scholar Athlete Award. So that's 100% of our teams. So that takes us up a notch in the awards department at the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. So again, you ask, what about your grades and eligibility? Like this, we're not just shooting for the bottom end of, can we make kids eligible to play sports? We're challenging our students to be scholar athletes. Like we're pushing the high end. We're not just taking the low end. We're setting the bar high. And if they do happen to miss that bar, then they're still doing pretty well. So in the fall, we honored 60 student athletes. In the winter, we honored 37. In the spring, 63. Again, in the winter, we have fewer athletes. So that's why that number is smaller. To be a student scholar athlete, you have to have a 90% average in the marking period that they designate. So the state designated it. For us, it's a little weird because we have the 8 marking periods in the high school, so I usually have to combine like 4 or 5. I have to call them up and say, what do you want me to do? So we did it. It's great. Thank you very much for your support. And the best news is that we finally got unified basketball off the floor and running. Crossing my fingers that we can continue it. I didn't know if it was going to happen. We were ready to go 2 years ago. COVID hit. Last year we had a slow sign-up period, and this year we got it. Coach Donna Howard deserves a ton of accolades because she really just got out into different classrooms and met with different kids and ran open gyms and got people here. The team went 5-1, so good record, very competitive. They earned scholar athlete team status. We had 6 Cal-Mum students, 1 Leroy student, 1 Pavilion student. So we were called Genesee United. If again, you guys have heard me talk about before, but it's a partnership between New York State Public High School and Special Olympics. And you have athletes that are students with disabilities, and you have partners who are students without disabilities that are playing on the floor at the same time. Denny Fries, who's a legendary athletic director and athletic leader in Section 5, is kind of the pushing person behind this. And he sent out a video of unified basketball. Do you guys want to see the video? It was on Channel 13 News. See the video? You can see it on your own?
They can click on it, yeah.
So on their own?
Yeah.
All right, so we don't have to show the video. Channel 13 news story about Canandaigua. What I'm hoping is that this will spread and we'll get more local schools, York, Avon, to join us. Because we were tight to get it, so it'd be nice to have a little bit of more participation. If you didn't stop in and see a game, there's everything that's good about school. So, and inclusivity. So thank you very much for your support. It was kind of like telling Mr. Malasani and Dr. Chanel, yeah, I think we got it. I think we're going to have it. Like, they didn't really chase me around and pin me down. I'm like, kind of glad because I was kind of sweating it, but we made it work, and it's really an awesome program. So thank you. I appreciate your support. Our student athletes appreciate your support, and hopefully we can grow it. That's it. You can shut me off now.
Thank you, Mike.
On the code itself, table of contents, you got to make your edits before the final.
Okay.
It's because you added stuff and the
Oh,
page
you mean the
numbers
page
don't
numbers?
add it.
Yeah, so the other thing too is I still work in Word, and I send it over in Google. So I'm going to go back when it comes back to Word because sometimes those two don't play nice together. But yes.
All right, let's move on this. So approval of the athletic code of conduct that was just presented to us. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the athletic code of conduct for the 2022-2023 school year. Motion, please.
I'll make it.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mrs. Meyer, presentation of the professional development plan.
All right. I am going to present 2 plans in one, if that's okay with you, Mr. Richter.
Yes, please
You okay? All right. Mr. Bigford, that's okay? All right, so we'll approve hopefully both of those after this. So the first I'll speak to you about is the response to intervention plan. Both of these plans, both the RTI plan and our professional development plan, were really hit by COVID. So the last time I got to speak directly to both of these plans was in 2019 when you approved it that June. So here we go. Our RTI plan, here are our solid committee members. We don't have any updates or edits to make other than the school year change. I will give you the gist of an RTI plan and tell you why we don't have any edits. So our RTI plan really represents an educational strategy to help fill in gaps or to move students to excel. So it's not just for our struggling students, it's for all students. Okay, so response to intervention means we're going to intervene wherever the child needs us to intervene. So some language that you have, it's a 3-tiered system. I'll show you a graphic in a minute. And the regulation piece of an RTI plan is something we must have, but really the focus is K-4. Our plan encompasses K-12, okay? So here's the graphic I was speaking of. We talk in tiers. So this goes for 2 sides of a triangle. So think of it that way. You have an academic side and you have a behavioral side. Sometimes we call it skill versus will. Okay, so there's always a skill set, and there might be a behavioral need that we're meeting at the same time. That's why both the academic and behavioral systems kind of go together. You'll see this triangle show up in the special ed plan, that correlation that Mrs. Rogers is going to speak to. It's in our guidance plan as well. So when we talk about Tier 1, that's all students. It's basically the classroom. Everything that we intervene, touch base on throughout the day, that's Tier 1. Tier 2 addresses interventions for students that are at some risk. And then the little top of that triangle is more intensive intervention, Tier 3, and we really address a small group of student needs. Okay. And because this is a K-12 plan, it does look differently in all three buildings. So at the elementary school, we actually run RTI, we call it win time, what I need time, and it's part of our master schedule. We also have quarterly RTI meetings. And I say that with like a asterisk because with COVID, we have not ran this plan all the way through ever. You approved it in June of 19, we got all the way to March, and we couldn't finish off the year. So we've been running with a hybrid RTI plan, let's just get it as close as we can in all three buildings. So we really look forward to crossing our fingers next year and running it 1 year through. At the middle school, we also have academic intervention services, or AIS, built within the master schedule. So students receive what they need throughout their school day, and then there are grade level meetings that they meet a couple times a week. And at the high school, you'll hear Dr. Chanel talk about home base, and home base is part of the master schedule, and that's where students go and get exactly what they need by the teacher that they're having the course with, experiencing the course with at that semester. They work closely with the school principal and the school counselor to make any scheduling adjustments that they need so that the teachers know, I'm coming to you today during home base because I need some intervention in this particular area. So we're always looking at data. It's a continuous cycle, and we really look forward to next year to really be able to roll this out start to finish. So once we have a full year rollout, I do anticipate being a little bit more, I don't know, what do you call that? Critical of our plan, and then we can start making adjustments as needed. But I really want us to run it through 1 year. So you actually see the exact same plan there that you saw in 2019. Questions about RTI plan? Okay, we're going to move along to the professional development plan. The professional development plan you also saw in front of you in 2019. However, because of COVID, this one actually had quite a few changes, and we were pushed as educators to move forward really fast in certain areas and also pump the brakes in certain areas. So you'll see those changes here. We did meet as a committee. We met to assess the effects that COVID-19 had on our plan, and we made adjustments based on what we accomplished as a district and what still needs to be completed. So again, 2019, you approved it. Then due to COVID, we had to meet some of our goals faster, and you'll see that in a second, and some just needed a pause. The largest change, and as you know, as a board, the largest hit to my little heart here is the instructional coaching plan that you invested time and energy into, but we just couldn't sustain it, especially through COVID. And having one teacher dedicated to instructional coaching, it actually left us looking for another position to fill, and it just wasn't fiscally responsible, I guess I would say. So our instructional coaching plan has been eliminated from this plan. In your PD plan, you'll have another one. So you're required to have your professional development plan. You're required to have a mentoring plan that lives together. We had the instructional coaching plan. That's what we eliminated. Okay, we have 4 goals. I'll give you a high overview. Goal number 1 is the alignment of New York State curriculum or New York State standards to our curriculum. So we align all of our curriculum to the New York State standards. What we didn't have in here specifically is languages other than English, which we've always taught. It wasn't part of our descriptor, and physical education. Both departments have new standards, and our teachers, even through COVID, have completely worked to align their curriculum to the New York State standards. The arts also have fairly new standards, so you'll see that across all of our curriculum. The second one is probably the one that as educators we were pushed the hardest through COVID to be able to maintain a high level of technology integration knowledge. Things that we anticipated would take us 4 years to do, we did in 3 months. So the resilience, the effort, the open-mindedness that all of our teachers had, and kind of the perseverance to keep going and learn technology and integrate it fully into their classroom, this is where the PD plan really shined. And so we will maintain to create an understanding and a flexibility of what future-ready students means to us as Caledonia-Mumford School District. Goal number 3 is that we do commit to providing opportunities for our teachers to grow as learners, as mentors, as researchers, as data divers. We use all of those things to make instructional decisions, and you have always backed us to grow, and we use our BOCES, and we use outside agencies, and we use the curriculum position to really support teachers and learn and grow in their pedagogical practices. So that's goal number 3. And then goal number 4 is to really continue to improve our data-driven protocols. You'll see that in every plan that we have. We don't just haphazardly make decisions, we use data to back it up, both in the classroom, when we're talking about instructional changes, if we're looking to make instructional decisions for specific children, we always back it with data. So we tried to do that to meet all of our students' needs. So that's goal number 4. And then that last part of our professional development plan is one that everybody should be very proud of here at Caledonia-Mumford, is our mentor plan. You may not know this, but like the inside scoop on our mentor program is that schools around our region use ours as the exemplar. So it is the most robust, supportive induction program for new teachers to come, and faculty and staff really to have, because we carry a new teacher, a new staff member from day one, and we put them through an induction program that goes over the course of 3 years. So it is a robust program, and area schools do model theirs around ours. One thing that we did refine, and we hope to refine this year moving forward, is to add another level of educator, and they have been the backbone of our school for the past 2 years. It's those long-term subs, the teachers that we need for 4-6 weeks to help us get through a difficult part of our year. What we recognize is that we throw them into a classroom and we count on a whole bunch of people to help support their success and the students' success. We'd like to assign a mentor to that substitute to help them through the daily life, the Cal-Mum way, the roles and responsibilities, the procedures, the everyday tasks. So we've added that as a level 3 teacher, that a mentee would be assigned, already trained mentor. We have a wonderful pool of teachers that have already been trained, and so we would solicit them to support this one teacher through the next 4 to 6 to 8 weeks of them supporting our kids. So it's the least we can do for them. I really do feel strongly about it. And that will push our plan to a whole nother level. Questions about the professional development plan or mentor plan that's kind of combined? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
No, I just think that that's a brilliant idea to do the long-term sub thing. That's very wise.
Okay, so number 9, approval of the professional development plan as presented. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the professional development plan for 2022 through 2025. A motion, please. And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
The only thing is, each year, we will actually have to approve the plan each year of those 3 years.
Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And number 11, approval of response to intervention plan. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the response to intervention plan 2022 through 2025. A motion, please. And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And Mrs. Rogers, presentation of special education plan.
Thank you. So yes, as you see, our special ed plan was due for a revision this school year. So we, at the beginning of the school year, assembled a team. You'll see representation across the district, general ed teachers, special ed teachers, and related service providers who came together to look at our plan and make some adjustments. We had two major goals in looking at the plan. The first being to add a mission statement as a department. We felt pretty strongly that we wouldn't be able to make any suggested changes or really look at anything unless we had an anchor and a way to align ourselves. So we wanted to set that standard as a department. And then the other major goal was to make this a plan that was user-friendly and a resource for the broader school community to utilize and access. As you look through the text of the document itself, you'll obviously see the red proposed to being taken out and the blue are additions. The highlighted sections I just wanted to draw your attention to in the table of contents. Those are required components of the plan, so if you're wondering why those were in there. So some major changes that I will walk you through, or I'll just walk you through them rather than giving you the overview. So first is the mission statement. And some key elements that I wanted to draw your attention to with the mission statement. Some key points are, that is for all learners, that we have high standards for our students, that we're setting individualized goals, and each student has a unique potential. The next major revision is with the Committee on Preschool Special Education section. One team member pointed out that our CPSE section really was just the minimal amount that needed to be in there, but really felt it should kind of mirror the CSE, the school age section, as this is often parents' first introduction to special education, and because that process looks very different, we wanted to make sure it was comprehensive for people to utilize and access. So you'll see additional information related to the process for referral, evaluations, the timeline, and preschool programs and services included. The CSE, the school age referral process, has been adjusted as well, not only by moving away from a narrative description of the process, but utilizing more visuals and graphics, a little bit more user-friendly to understand exactly what a family might expect throughout that referral process. And also, there is an element within the referral process that utilizes response to intervention. So when those two areas overlap, we took the language directly from the response to intervention plan that our district has and put it right in the plan so that those two mirror each other and consistent across the two plans. Again, related to CSE process, moving away from that narrative, our own interpretation of the process, and these graphics are provided through State Ed's quality assurance for districts to use. So we're pulling that language right from State Ed. It's not our own interpretation, it's just the facts. So families have a clear understanding and accurate information. One area that often comes up throughout the year is the difference between a referral and a request for a referral and who can make which. So that information is now clear so everyone understands whose role is what. The Continuum of Services section is probably a large part of the plan that we adjusted. We adjusted it in three major ways. So this is where it highlights all the programs and services that are available through special education on our continuum. We are now including all elements of the continuum per Commissioner's regulations, as opposed to just the ones that are offered in the district and some of the more frequently accessed ones. Now we have the full continuum on there. We wanted to make it clear that CalMum has the ability to provide any part of the continuum that a family might need, whether it's in district or not. In doing so, we specified within that plan which can be accessed in the district and which would be accessed out of the district, just so it's not misleading to families and they have an understanding of where they can access different services. The language in the description of all the programs and services are being pulled directly from Commissioner's regulations as well too, so not our interpretation of what the program is. We are required to have a way to measure departmental goals as part of the plan. With the previous plan, BOCES had provided districts a set of goals that they could utilize, which is what we had in ours. By not having them having any ownership over them within the department, they weren't being regularly monitored and had any ownership over them essentially. So we moved away from those goals. We now have access to an Iep Self-Audit System. So we are, as a department, utilizing a system where we are considering a student's IEP as the model for the program and quality programming that we have offered our child. So we're regularly auditing ourselves and making sure that not only do our IEPs meet regulation, they also meet our standard for the types of programs we want our students to have. So throughout the year, we've been auditing that, and with that information that's come out of that, we've set 3 new goals. The first being related to student input on their IEP, so that student voice is heard throughout their IEP. Excuse me. The second is increasing family engagement in the process so that families feel empowered to be a part of the CSE process. And the last is setting measurable goals for students using multiple data points. And then the last major change of the plan, you'll see the last appendix in the plan is a resource section for families. We wanted to make sure families feel like they have all the information that they need to be a part of the process. So in doing so, there's live hyperlinks that take them to reputable sources to get additional outside information on the process, a guide for them throughout the process so they know what to expect before, during, and after a meeting. And then lastly, a glossary of terms. Because in special education, oftentimes there's it's almost a new language, and we don't want families to feel like that's a barrier for them to understand what's happening with their child. So we identified over 80 terms that are defined in there for families to access. Any questions about the plan?
Any questions? Thank you, Mrs. Rogers.
Thank you.
Approval of the special education plan as presented for 2022 and 2024. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the recommendation of the superintendent. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the special education plan. Motion, please.
I'll make it.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 14, Caledonia Recreation Transportation Requests. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve bus requests from Caledonia Recreation for the following field trips as listed. Motion, please.
I'll make it.
And a second by the other one that said they'd make the first motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 15, approval of the bond resolution. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the attached bond resolution for the purchase of buses. A motion, please.
Make it.
And a second? And discussion. This is being awarded to Five Star Bank for the lowest rate.
That's correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 16, Board of Education evaluation discussion. I'm going to make a suggestion, given time, that we sort of table this. I think we can start the process if we go through our written list of priorities, listing 4 major goals. So we have each of our 4 major goals on there, but maybe I can work with the board clerk and get out a Google form where, using now what everybody has seen there and is listed, we can vote on those to move forward. And maybe somewhere in that same thing, we'll find out, now that we've all seen everybody's thoughts, what the biggest weakness might have been. And then we can move forward with a more in-depth discussion on each individual items throughout the year in meetings. Is that agreeable to other board members?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. And before executive session,
John has a plaque.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bickford for a second.
Well, this is for the guy retiring. You gave us 9 good years there, Mr. Gear. Everybody that sat at this table, present, and all 9 years worth of board members you served with, it was an honor for every one of them to have had you in their presence. You were good. You set everything straight a couple times when it needed to be straight, and you certainly helped me out more than once. So on that note, thank you. Your mom and dad did good with you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Resolved that the Board of Education adjourn to executive session at 7:42 p.m. to discuss the employment and employee history of particular persons, matters leading to the appointment, confidential student records protected by FERPA, and collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. Motion, please.
I'll make it.
Joe, second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any absent? We will be back. Okay, welcome back from executive session. We will now move on personnel. I am going to entertain a motion for personnel 1 through 16. 1, appointment of tenure of an elementary music teacher. 2, appointment of tenure of high school counselor. 3, resignation of technology teacher. 4, approval of leave of absence. 5, appointment of mentors. 6, appointment of summer cleaners. 7, appointment of permanent cleaner. 8, appointment of curriculum leader. 9, appointment of school psychologist. 10, ratification of the collective bargaining agreement with the CMSSA. 11, appointment of elementary summer reading program teachers. 12, appointment of social worker. 13, resignation of bus driver for the purpose of retirement. 14, appointments of non-athletic positions. 15, appointments of interscholastic coaches. And 16, appointment of club advisor. Motion for 1 through 16 as listed, please.
I will make it.
Joe Gear, second.
I'll second.
Liz, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And Mr. Gear, would you please make a motion for adjournment?
I make the motion for adjournment.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night.